Here we go.
Got it.
Okay, then. Hi again, David.
Hello.
Thanks for accepting our invite to have a chat within Vadi Sound Talks. It's a pleasure. So we met you through your Ambisonic Spaces podcast, where you host field recordists around the world. And thank you for that. My business partner had a chance to, give you his recordings, and that was a great part. Thank you again for that. But today we want to know you. We want to know more about you before coming to your podcast. And so you're a sound designer and a composer. And I want to start with asking your story, actually, your journey coming here. How did you start all of this? And what were the inspiration points for you to begin your journey?
Yeah, also, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It's always fun talking to other like-minded people in the audio industry. So thank you for having me on. As far as getting started in the whole thing, I've been in audio for over 20 years, and it kind of started with the high school rock band. You wanted to become a rock star when you're 16 years old, so you pick up a guitar or a bass, and then the rest is history, really. But no, I kid. But yeah, I think, being a musician early on and then developing those skills and then finding other niche areas that you get into, like, hey, I like how this sounds and I just like recording. And I think what really got me into it was the production of it all. And fast forward, how to storytelling, really. Audio is a form of storytelling. And I think over time, from the past 20 years, I think that's what it's kind of morphed into. So yeah, from the humble beginnings of wanting to become a 15-year-old rock star to, I mean, there's a long story and we won't get into all that, but yeah, I think it's just really telling stories.
Yeah, great. And did you have inspirations, people or events apart from your music?
Oh, that's a good question. I think there's a lot of things to get inspired about. I mean, it can be a conversation or a movie or something you heard on the radio or just walking through the forest or being out in nature. There's a lot of different things that personally I can get inspired from, and it might not be what other people get inspired from, but I guess what I'm trying to say is there's inspirations everywhere, and I can't really nail down what inspires me to do this, that, or the other thing. And we'll get into it later, but right now it's become more of like, hey, we need to do XYZ. Okay, so we're going to do XYZ. You have a focus, but there's been a few times when I'm composing a piece, let's say, that comes out of pure inspiration, and those are great pieces. I love them. But I mean, other music composers would say that do it full time, unlike me, where they're composing all the time. They actually, even when inspiration is not there, they have the skill set and knowledge to make something wonderful, even though there was no inspiration coming out of it. And that comes with, time and skill and working through that. But yeah.
Cool. So I heard you like being in the nature, and it kind of gives you a purpose as well. This field recording, and also in your podcast, you give space to the field recordists and their also interaction with nature and interaction with sound. And before this recording, you said you want to, tell the stories of others, just like you said now. And it's really an inspiration in itself. And does that kind of sum up your, approach to sound recording, sound design?
Yeah, I think audio, well, like I said, audio storytelling is its own craft, I think. And telling other people's stories through, I mean, the podcast is wonderful. I think trying to translate what feelings are associated with whatever story is trying to be told is really key, and it's sometimes I struggle with it. Trying to find what that sound artist, what their struggles were in making a story, like what's the crux point of their decisions, of what they decided to do, what were the low points, and how did they overcome that. It can be tough to do in just, hey, I go out and I field record. But I mean, you can pull out little pieces of in certain episodes, and what artists say, you can pull out little pieces where it's very really inspirational, and then just kind of open that up, I guess, and really explore that. And like I said, I really like the production side of it, where I mean, you have the storytelling and the production side. What I find fun, though, and what I'm really learning, and we'll get to this in a bit, what I'm really growing in is that actual writing, storytelling part. I'm not I didn't go to school for writing or anything like that, so I do struggle with it sometimes, with writing a script or writing the dialogue around it.
You're pretty good at that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. That's something, on the production side, I can do that depending on the scope. I could do that fairly quickly, but the writing, I find, takes quite a bit of time for me. And that's a skill set that I'm developing and learning. And I'm not the best at it. I do enjoy it. But I mean, we'll get into this in a little bit, but I think not just being one, like I'm an audio artist, or, I'm a sound designer. I think there's other skill sets we need to have as artists to really enhance the quality of our work, if that makes sense. And we can get to that in a little bit, but I hope that answers your question. I don't know if I kind of trailed off there.
It does, actually. But what you're saying is really resonating with me, because when I listen to your podcasts, it's like, little stories in themselves. They don't sound like the usual podcasts. And the way you talk about the field recordist or the nature, I think it's pretty good writing and also telling what you mean. So, for example, in our company, in our work, we always say we are after finding the true sound of things, because we believe, subjective or objective, there is a true sound of everything. And it feels like you're also after that, either the field recorders or what they're, trying to find. So in the end, your episodes are little stories, and they are immersive. Let's put it that way. It's a buzzword, I know, but really immersive. So when I listened to your, last podcast, Melissa's, I could feel that you and she kind of put her soul into also the chat. So that gets through. That's pretty much achievement, I think. And
it's fun on that one that you bring that up. Melissa Pons, great sound artist, has a lot of great insights and what she believes and what she says, and her approach to field recording. As we were collaborating months prior to the release, just a little insight. Sometimes I'll talk to a field artist, hey, do you want to be on the podcast? Okay, great. And that episode won't be released until 6 or 7 months later, just with all the production and the writing and the emails back and forth, and time zones. That's a big one as well. So just a little, sorry, excuse me. That was a little tidbit of the production value. But going back to what you were saying, I found it very interesting. You're trying to find the true sound of something. And I think that goes in line with what this podcast is really about, is just listening. There's so many times we're so distracted with phones and notifications and emails, and then you go on social media and then there's opinions everywhere and you have to get your opinion out, and it just feels like all this chaos, you know? I think just setting time aside to listen is very beneficial, and not listening in a way of, well, so if we're having a conversation like we are now, I'm listening to you and I'm just waiting to respond. It's not, it's a little bit deeper. It's a little bit more immersive, I guess you could say, the art of listening. And it is an art. It's something you have to practice. It's something you have to consciously do instead of waiting for the opportunity to tell your opinion. I think really taking the time to listen to someone, or even if you're field recording, like Melissa Pons does, she actually sits there and listens while she's recording instead of just dropping her drop rig and then going out and doing whatever else she needs to do. So it's just in that, I think you find the most value. And one of my friends, Eduardo Patricio, says it the best, and I kind of stole the tagline, so if he's listening, I apologize, but he's right. The more we listen, the more we understand. And I think that goes deep on so many levels.
Yeah, great. I have so many comments and questions. Let's see if I can manage that.
I know, sorry, I kind of went over like 7 points there. I apologize.
No, yours is fine. It opened many new tabs on my thought process.
Right,
so,
yeah.
Let me bring some structure to my questions first. So just to understand, how much of your time goes into your podcast and, your own sound design projects, other projects, composing, just to let me understand?
Yeah, like I said, with the podcast, I mean, it came out of how should I say this? To make it make more sense. So originally, I just wanted to do a podcast of, just highlight the field recordings that I've done. I focus on ambisonics, and, I live in a wonderful area where I can go out in nature and record close to cities too. So I can record in the cities and transportate all this kind of stuff. And originally it was just going to be, every week just post something, a recording that I did. No dialogue, nothing, just put it up so people can, listen to it while they fall asleep or just have background noise. But then I got an idea of like, hey, why don't I just highlight other people's stuff as well? And then it kind of snowballed into this massive production that sometimes can be a headache of, I contact sound artists, hey, do you want to do this? And they're like, yeah. And then, everybody has their own work doing, and then, a month later you're like, oh, here's some recordings I did. Oh, hey, do you want to do a little dialogue, tell a story or just hit these points? Yeah, that works. And then 3 months later goes by, and then the production starts happening once you get all the assets. And then sometimes you have questions when you're writing the script too, and then you write the script around it, and the production usually is the quickest part for me, but leading up to that is man, it can take some time to create something like that. But I think sometimes the end product is definitely well worth it, because you're not just conveying, oh, here's some sounds to listen to. It's much more than that. It's really listening and having the ability for the listener to listen more through what the artist is saying. And I think my job as, being a host or whatever, or just narrating and doing voiceovers, is to really guide that experience to be as easy as possible, and not really I don't think I have a fantastic voice, but I think the main heart of it is just to really guide the listener to get the most out of it they can. And going back to, by listening more, we understand more.
Great. It works. It's what we like calling, it's not a podcast for just today, but for the, also for the future. Somebody would just run into it and listen to it and understand. Still, it's relevant. It's a bit, timeless. So I think that's how podcasts should be, in general, not just the agenda of today, or just, random thoughts of the speaker at that point of time. So the content is quite big for 1 year. I think, the episodes I could see started at the beginning of this year, and already your guests are very, important field recordists. So it's a great collection even in a year. So I guess that takes a lot of your time. And do you have time for other projects you're working on?
Yeah. Actually, the podcast is like the side project of the side project. And when you don't want to do everything to excellence, you find that you don't have enough hours in the day. But yeah, I do have other projects. I do work for an audio company. We specialize in podcasts and audiobooks, and so that takes up the majority of the working day for sure, and even beyond sometimes. And it's going fantastic. We're doing great. I love that job. Love the people I work with. And then I do have my own sound company, I guess you could say, where it specializes in ambisonic. So if anybody doesn't know what ambisonics is, it's basically, in layman's terms, spatial audio. It's a 3D recording of mainly, I would say, environmental sounds, but you could really put anything to it. And it really is an immersive way to listen to sounds and audio. You get the height, you get the depth, you get behind, left to right. What I always try and say is, okay, so this microphone here, it has one capsule, one capsule in this microphone. You have a stereo microphone, just like you have stereo speakers. It has two microphones, right? With ambisonics, you can have 4 microphones, you can have 8 microphones, and then just kind of exponentially goes up, and it kind of captures the 3D environment around you. So that's what I specialize in. So I do have some sound packs up for sale in some various gaming marketplaces, Unreal Marketplace. Unfortunately, I have to get another website, so that website's kind of under development, but I did have stuff selling through there. So but it's great. The podcast is a great way to highlight that as well, and use some of my own stuff to put in there for, background noises, and just to make everything come alive more. So yeah, it's great. I've gotten to know a lot of great people through that. I've worked with a lot of great companies. So yeah.
Great. So when you say ambisonics, it's naturally comes with technology. And are you particularly interested in the technology as well, or are you more after the, getting the right sound, like we said?
Yes and yes. I think I do nerd out quite a bit when it comes to, the tech side of everything. I, just have to have. Oh yeah, it's fun learning all that stuff as well. But yeah, more importantly, I guess the main thing would be getting that perfect sound for sure. But I think there's a cyclical process. Just like if you're a musician, you have your creative stage, and then your production stage, and then maybe a marketing and distribution stage, and then possibly a performance stage, and then it just kind of circles back around. traditionally. I think it's the same way with field recording and production as well, where you have, you might have like a certain job that you have to do, or you just want to go out and do something. But there's that cyclical process where first you're like, okay, I got to go out and record sounds. So you record sounds, then you come back, you have to process those sounds and then market those sounds and then try and sell those sounds. And then it just kind of goes around in a cyclical process. And each one of those processes requires a different kind of skill set. So, and I think we were talking about this earlier. And the more skill sets you have, the more diverse you'll become, and more, the more diverse you'll become. So, I mean, yes, I could go out and record sounds. And if I'm really good at that, that's not really going to get me far unless I have different kind of skill sets or a great team around me to do that. And most sound artists I know don't really have a team around them. They're doing it all on all themselves, especially people who are first getting started. So I think having the skill sets of, okay, yes, I know how to, use this microphone. I know how to record, gain stage, and find the right places, not get airplanes, all that kind of stuff. That's great. But when you come back, there's a different kind of skills set where you need to produce that and get on the technology kind of side, and different EQs and settings and all that kind of stuff, and hone those skills and then export it to the right bit depth rate and all that kind of stuff for different platforms. And then, I mean, you go into the next stage, you need a different kind of skill set to market it and
for sure.
distribute it. And I mean, you need all these different skill sets. And I think continuing to grow and learn in each and every one of those cyclical sections, I guess, it's only going to benefit you.
Yeah. And technology is both helping you get the best job, and understanding it well is actually helping you market your products, your sounds in the end, because as you said, it's part of the skill set and it's part of the storytelling as well, how you reach that end
absolutely.
results. It's really inspiring, I think, to because at our company, our team, we are also nowadays obsessed with getting very expressive videos of how we're recording. So we got a few equipments like GoPros and stuff, not digressing from the sounds, but we want to video to aid to bring out that sound better and make it more immersive. And it's sometimes a kind of a dilemma, because our philosophy is also, the sound by itself should tell its story. But when it's enriched with videos, it also inspires us at that time. But then it's, referring to what you just said, field recording is more a solo job. You don't want to get distracted. So how do you capture the, visuals and sounds as effectively at the same time? That's what we're discussing nowadays.
More technology means just more work in the end.
Exactly.
But it does create a great product. But at the same time, more technology you have, you're going to be working a little bit more in the end.
Yeah. Like more microphones, more work, better recorders, more work. It actually sounds like it's less work, but it's not. So
it just gets exponential.
Sometimes it's good to stick just the basics, what you started with, basic and good stuff in terms of equipment as well, and concentrate, like you said, keep the focus. And so that's another, go on.
Oh no, it just reminds me of when I have a certain project I need to do. Enis probably knows this better than I do, but you're gearing up, you have your backpacks and your sound bags, and so you're out in the field and you're just with all this stuff, and then you have a drop rig, and then you have to carry everything else and go to another place and then drop it and then go back. And it's
Mm.
just going back to the point of more equipment, more work.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, I am very, yeah, there's been a few times where it's just like, wow, I have so much. And then you got to think of the camera stuff, right? Too,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
like, oh, I got to get pictures, I got to get videos for this and that. And sometimes you forget and you're like, why didn't I do that? And then there's the sharing on social media, which is a whole different ball game. And
exactly.
yeah, technologies can sometimes make your head explode. But in this industry, you need it, and you just gotta work with it and not against it,
Hmm.
and be very careful, I
Yeah,
would say.
yeah, for sure. I have another question on this concentration focus. So, there are some sound artists who, just record hours and hours of, nature, let's say, just to give an example. But then they are very critical of their own recordings. So they just delete them and go and try to find better stuff. And sometimes they're critical on themselves, like they couldn't concentrate enough. Um, and they are like perfectionists and so on. And there are some others who believe like capturing the moment as it is. The field recordist can be in a different mood, maybe not the best mood, maybe not the best environment. Like you said, maybe there are plays going on and stuff, but that still should be captured and it shouldn't be, thrown away. So
Mhm.
within these, maybe I want to hear your thoughts in which camp you're more towards.
No, it's fascinating. I think I think I would not throw anything out
Mhm.
if that was one of the options. I think we need to understand the sonic conservation side of things as well. Uh, I mean, if you didn't like a particular recording you did, I wouldn't say, throw it out, because I mean, it could be useful over time. And, one of the things I want to try and do is particularly where I live. I'll just tell this as a story.
Yeah.
That might be better than explaining other things.
Yeah.
uh, so where I particularly live, moved here, oh gosh, maybe 7, 8 years ago. It's in the mountains. It's a beautiful area. It's not too rural. It's not too far from the city, but it's out in nature. We're in the mountains. There's trees, there's birds and everything. Unfortunately, there is a highway about a mile or two
Mm.
away. And I think, over time, I've noticed it getting a lot louder with, the traffic and everything like that. And sometimes it's you go out, I know there's like the wind that can affect, and, different kinds of things that can affect the sound, but it is generally getting louder. And if I unfortunately, I can't just, if it's raining or something, I can't place a microphone outside because you will also hear the traffic. If I want to get a clean rain and thunder recording, I can't do it at my house. I will hear the traffic.
Yeah.
And over the years, I've noticed it getting louder and louder and louder. And my point is, if I have recorded outside, and then in maybe a year, I'll record again outside my door.
Mhm.
And then in 5 years and 10 years, and then I can catalog that. And then you can actually document the
Mhm.
sound or the effects of, sonic or noise pollution,
Yeah.
and really highlight the importance of sonic conservation. You can actually hear the traffic louder and the bird sounds get less, and those
Mhm.
birds are communicating whatever they communicate, and they're not able to communicate in that way anymore. So there is an imbalance that's happening
Mhm.
sonically. And I get it. I'm not against, human development or anything like that. I think we just need to get more smart about it, or
Yeah.
smarter,
Yeah.
more smart about it. uh yeah. So there, like with development, we could, with that particular situation, there's different kinds of materials that roads can be built with
Yeah.
that decrease the volume by 10, even 20%,
Mhm.
with tires on the road and traffic
Yeah.
noises. if we start thinking more along those lines, I think we'll be in a better space.
Yeah.
But yeah, just keeping that in mind, that sounds in nature and the sounds that we as humans make and the colliding of those, I mean, it does matter. I think we need to really focus on sonic conservation and the ways that we can actually help the environment and work together with nature on it. So
Exactly. We're also after recording the birds in Turkey, we're now waiting for spring, where they'll be louder.
Yeah.
But then listening to your story in Colorado, the traffic and the increasing development and trying to get the birds in between, you gave me an idea for a new SFX packs called City Birds.
All right. Fantastic. I think I'll take 10% of that if that was the idea. or maybe 20.
Yeah. I was just gonna say okay to 10% deal.
Okay. That'll work. I'll settle at 10.
It's a great idea, actually, the birds of the city, because they are trying to preserve their own life, their own habitats. And in Istanbul, it's mad, as you can imagine. And we all live in the midst of the city, in areas where quite urban, and also, with workplaces around, etc., a lot of commuting going around. And it's never silent, but the birds are always there. They're always trying to, go on and, keep their presence. If there's just one tree left, they will, own it. It's quite nice, I think. And if we, so there are a lot of photographers here who are trying to preserve the bird life, bird's life, and continuity in Turkey. But when we really start recording more with our contribution, I think it can help with, how do you say, stop the illegal hunters of birds, because there's still much going on here. Unfortunately, for food, for fun, just people are, even they're following the social medias of the birders, the bird photographers, and trying to find out those, hidden places where they are. It's quite sad, actually. So we want to contribute with sound recording, field recording of the birds, and get funded maybe for their preservation of those areas. There are quite a few, what are they called? Birds, the watery places of birds, reservatories or something.
Okay.
So livelihood, or say, of birds. So that's on our list of giving back to the environment.
That's great. That's great. It's something I always struggled with, is to find where, to give back, basically. Where can I give back? And do I give back in this line, or over here, or the wolf sanctuary, or the local whatever? I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but I feel like the podcast is in its way of giving back. Yes, I do highlight some stories of my own, but I think the main thing is telling other people's stories and what they're involved with. And really, it's just, exploring the world through sound, and in that, exploring other sound artists and what they're doing. And I love hearing about how they're contributing back as well, whether it be through what they learned, or if they are contributing to a wolf sanctuary somewhere else, or anything like that. So I think that's great. That's something I have struggled with, but I think the podcast does help a little bit in its own way.
And cool. And on your guest stories in your podcast, so I wanted to learn what you've learned from them. Any I don't know, defining moments maybe of the things you heard and you said, wow, I want to look into this myself, and why not do that? Or maybe I should change my perspective. I don't know, you name it. Did you
Right.
have moments like those?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, as the podcast is about listening, right? uh, sometimes it even, I mean, if anybody edits podcasts that's actually listening to this, sometimes you can just be in the edit mode and listen to something 6, 7 times and not even know what they're talking about. And sometimes I fall into that because you're in the, I'm listening for the and different things that need to be taken out and all that kind of stuff. Is it sounding good? You're not listening to the content. So
Yeah.
what I've learned is how to listen more in a podcast of trying to highlight listening as a skill set that we can all develop and grow in. So it's kind of that, it was kind of like, gotcha, podcast. Or yeah. So I think some of the defining moments is one of that has helped me become a better listener. And going into that as well, finding like how people tick and what their struggles are, and what they've overcome, and learning more about the environment in itself. What was it, Edward Patricio, which I mentioned before? He had this, he was on, and his whole thing was the Belfast Sound Walk, and just how sounds will change over time, like the highway at my house. I think it's just learning little things like that. And even to Melissa Pond's episode where it was very focusing on just being present and in the moment, and not getting sounds for a project for a project's sake. Yes, we need to, value our work and make a living and, get compensated. Yes, that's all great. But there's a deeper level in that. So even when I'm the few projects that I've had where I go out and I have to get XYZ, there's something more that we can learn from that. Just And she highlights just being present and in the moment, and just listening and giving honor to the environment you're in, and learning about the history and the culture of it before you do that, so you can really give honor to that space as much as you can. And then and just being there and listening in the moment will enrich the experience so much more.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. For me, for example, I was very annoyed with Istanbul's noises previously. And then after, hours of recording, even the busiest places, because there's a high demand for, wallas and, crowds and urban sounds, let's say. It becomes like what I call it, I don't know if it's the correct word, but athletes high after too much running. You get high and you get like in a flow. And so after, hours of recording the noise and the tourists and the people making noises, you get in a high, I get in a high state, and I start enjoying what I'm listening, what I'm capturing. So for me, field recording helped me to get in peace, at peace with this, hectic city, crazy city, I would put it that way.
No, that's great. You're finding something that once gave you a little bit of stress, and now you have learned to make peace out of it and actually be enriched out of that experience. No, that's really interesting. That's a great way to change your mindset for sure. And it's only helping you, because I mean, I've been on recording excursions, and then you hear people just talking away in the background, or a plane flying by, or someone honking their horn in the background, and you're like, you get so angry on the inside. I've gotten angry on the inside, being like, why do you guys even talk when you're on a hike, or something like that, something totally ridiculous, and being angry about the stupidest things. But yeah, I think it's a mindset change that, some of us need to have, because like you're not going to be able to change that you can't change the sound of Istanbul. I can't change the sound of the highway behind me. I can't. It's so why get angry about it? I think
Yeah.
embracing and enjoying it, as well
Yeah.
as being aware of it. And if we do have the ability, you know, where we can, we can make a difference. But it first has to start with ourselves and our own mindset, and not getting angry at hikers having a good conversation while you're trying to record some birds.
Yeah.
It starts with that.
Exactly. Cool. So you've been doing a lot. So what's next on your, you know, projects? I don't know, resolution list. Now that
Right.
the new year is coming as well. So maybe you started preparing your project resolutions.
It's, you know, with other responsibilities that I have, it might take a while to get there, but I do have an outline of what I want to get done with, you know, ambisonic field recording and the podcast as well. But just to highlight some of that, when I can get to it, I'll do some other, you know, ambisonic sound packs. I do have a great list of people that I want on the, or that I'm talking to, that will be on the podcast as well. And being an ambisonic podcast, I do have a Patreon where it's like the only way you can listen to true spatial audio, just with the file format and tech stuff on the back end. You can't listen to spatial audio like in a normal like podcast player. So Patreon's a great way where you can. So if you have the right equipment, just Apple AirPods, at least the 3rd generation or higher, and then, you know, an iPhone or Safari or something like that, then you can actually listen to parts of episodes and different field recordings in a 3D environment with head tracking, which is really cool. So you hear a bird over here. It's all immersive and interactive as your head turns. Your environment is dynamic to where you're facing. So it's a great way to listen. I'm actually implementing some different, you know, implementing dialogue into that as well. And it takes time because it's infinitely a lot more production on that end and creativity of where you're placing sounds and stuff like that. So I mean, people can check that out. There are some free samples, I guess you could say, on that, on the Patreon page, so you can get a feel of what it is. But yeah, so I'm developing that and developing those other things, like I said. So yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff on the horizon. When it all is going to be out, who knows?
Who knows?
Yeah.
Good. It's good to have like these kind of, you know, even more difficult things on top of what you're doing. It keeps us up and, you know, inspired, because it's, you know, after a while things get, you know, start feeling the same. But when you build parallel activities, projects, as you said earlier, all of it starts complementing each other, and it's a kind of, it changes its shape and meaning. That's nice. You're very active.
Yes, I'm excited for this Christmas season to not be active for a weekend. It'd be great.
So you won't be recording on Christmas?
Hopefully not. But who knows? Who knows?
That's a complaint I get a lot during holidays. I just hush people, like you said, you know, just a second, there's this great sound, there's this great bird, or maybe there's a garbage truck passing by, and I'm thinking that's going to make a great creature or monster, that sound that pass by.
Oh yeah.
So people are like, I don't want to see you anymore if you're gonna keep on recording during the holidays.
Exactly. You're like, hey, can you keep it down? I thought we were going out to lunch.
We'll talk later.
Exactly.
Cool. So,
you got the check right. I gotta record this.
Yeah, expenses, recording expenses.
Exactly.
Oh, David, it's great to hear your journey. I want to end with my classic question to the newbies in this area. all your, activities, projects, what would you recommend how they start? What they should take notice of, and so on, and what not to do, maybe.
Yeah, I think just learn as much as you can, really. Don't ever stop learning. Don't ever stop having a mindset to learn new things. Like we were talking about before, with that cyclical nature of what audio artists that we do, all of those require a different skill set, and really craft those skills to being able to do what you want to do with excellence. So if you want to be a musician or audio artists or anything like that, it goes with anything. Like, yes, that's your passion, but you're going to be doing that 10% of the time.
Yeah.
And then the other, I would say, really invest in learning those other skill sets to being able to do what you want to do. Because that's how great companies and organizations are built, or with a team of people that are all specialized in what they do. I mean, you're a marketer, that's your special skill set. Yes, you do field recording, and as a great field recordist, and I'm sure he does a little bit of marketing, but you each have your strengths, and you go forth, and you're that much better. You have that team. So if you're just starting out, you got to wear a lot of hats. And even if you don't like selling, if you're not a salesperson, learn it. Learn how to sell. And don't be afraid of failure, because it's gonna happen, and that's the best way to learn. So that'd be that's
great.
In a nutshell.
That's great. Perfect.
Yeah.
I want to talk about so many other things, but I think we should stop. It's quite early where you are, right?
9 a.m. and I think it's 7 p.m. for you.
8 now.
8.
No,
okay.
so sorry, 7. You're right. 7.
Right on.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
It's already dark outside.
Oh yeah. What's the shortest day of the year was yesterday, so
yes. It was. So the shortest time for recording as well.
Right. Like, I'm going to bed. It's all good.
All right then. Anything else you want to share with me before we close?
Hey, just by listening more, we can understand more. That's it in a nutshell. But thank you so much for having me on, and it's great meeting you guys, and sharing what's very important, just listening.
Yes, and thank you for having you here today, and also hosting my business partner Enis in your podcast with his Mount Ida field recordings. And in return, we want to get some of your recordings to add to the end of this video, and to put as links, a selection from you.
Absolutely.
How you want to be heard by our listeners.
Ooh, the pressure's on.
Yeah, it's never ending.
It's never ending. Yeah. That is the truth.
Yeah. Great. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you. We'll see you.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.